Hi, I'm Rainer, and welcome to my training room. Today, I thought I would build a small building out of this kit. And this is the Walther's Vintage Trackside Structures. It's a kit with five different buildings in here. And I haven't even opened it. It's a brand new kit. I picked it up somewhere. I don't even remember where, sometime over the last year. And I'm not going to build all five of them right now, but there is one small cabin that I want to try to build out of this and see what I can make it look like. And so I'm going to open it up and see what it's going to take. It's a Walther's kit, should go together just fine. And my idea for the cabin is there's another area right up here on my layout beside my little river that's kind of below my curved trestle that I want to finish up the scenery on one side of the river. And I have an idea of trying to see if this cabin, once I build it, if it will fit in that into that spot. So I thought I would pull it out, get this cabin built, and then see how it fits up there. So let's see what it's going to take. So as you can see, it's an unopened brand new kit. I'm thinking that I need to pick out which parts belong to that cabin and cut them from the sprues. So this looks like the roof sections for all of the buildings. This is the windows and doors, things like that for all of the buildings. And these would be the walls and the bases for the building. So my thinking is that I want to build this smaller cabin right here. Not the large building. One of them is like a little outhouse and there's some storage sheds, but there's this one cabin right here. So I'll cut the base for that. And then I need to figure out which wall sections are for that one as well. So I think it's pretty easy to match up the widths. So that should be the two end walls for that. And then there will be a front and a back wall, which I believe would be those. And some of these are the chimney parts. So let's see, 39 and 40. It also has a little kind of a lean-to shed on it. 42 or 48 for the door. So if you can see here, there's two types of doors, this one and this one. I think this works better to be a cabin door. Seems to be a little bit of confusion over this because it's saying number 32 is that little round chimney. However, 32 is actually the roof piece over here. So I wonder what part it's supposed to actually be. It's actually 52. So they have a, as is typical with a lot of these Walther's kits, there are mistakes, and we have a part number 52 up here that, well, 52 is the chimney for that. So I'm not sure what that round chimney is supposed to be. Let's see if I can find something else. How about 41? Is 41 labeled anywhere else? With just a quick inspection, I don't see 41 anywhere else, so I think they've numbered it wrong in the instructions. I'm going to use that because I think that will work. Now, it's just time to assemble this, and what I'm going to do is these four walls are going to get attached to the base, and then I'm going to assemble the chimney together as a unit. And then the next step will be to prime all of the walls and the floor black, mainly the walls, so that once I paint it, the black paint will stop any light transmission if I decide to put a little light inside here. So that's the idea. And before I install the windows or the doors, I'm going to paint the outside walls and then put the windows and the doors in place. And I will probably end up painting those a different color as well, or at least painting them so they're not shiny plastic. But first thing, get these glued together and then get them primed black so that if I decide to put lighting inside this thing, the light will not transmit through the walls and make the walls glow kind of this light color. So that'll be the first step, and let's see how this goes. So I painted the window frames and the door and this little storage bin with some gray Floquil paint, and I have primed the cabin walls after I glued them on. To glue the walls together, I just used some MEK in a syringe, so I can just apply a little dribble of it in the corners as I hold the pieces together. And the way it works is it's basically a solvent that just briefly melts the two pieces of plastic together, so it kind of welds it together as one piece. So I did that at all the joints, and then I gave the house just a quick spray of black primer inside and out just to kind of help stop light transmission through it. And then my next plan here is to just paint it. And I've got some of this Pullman green, so I'm going to see how that looks. I don't know if it's going to work okay, but my idea with this is it's going to be I want it to look like a kind of a dirty old cabin in the trees. So I'm going to try kind of a dark color like this and then see what it looks like with this on there and some weathering. So I have no idea how this color is going to work out on here, but we'll soon see. So I'm just going to try brushing it on because it's a flat paint anyway, and on the boards, as long as I brush it horizontally across the boards, it should be just fine. Or if you could hear that, but that is a train going past in my backyard because my property backs onto the CP tracks coming north out of Toronto, and the train is going by probably 50-60 feet from the back of my house. So you can hear it quite clearly, and it's actually shaking the rattle, making things rattle in the room here as it goes by. So we'll see how that color works on there. We'll see if it's okay or not. Kind of a dark colored green. It's kind of a dark grayish green. So after I painted this, I kind of held it in position up in the area where I was thinking of putting it, and came to the conclusion that this, despite being a small cabin, is a little too large for what I want. Because what I really want is the kind of the look of a tiny little trapper's cabin kind of thing. I don't want this to dominate the scene. I want it to be a small building tucked in the trees. And believe it or not, this is a little too big for what I'm looking for. So instead, I pulled out the pieces for what they call the small shanty out of that kit. And so now I'm going to build that. I'll build that as well. So I'm going to finish building this, and it will go somewhere else on the layout once it's done eventually. But for now, I'm going to build this one instead, or as well. So again, using the MEK, just hold this in place. Have some in the syringe already. Just put a drop of it in there, and it just wicks right into the joint very quickly. And I'll just hold on to it for a few seconds here, and that should hold well enough. And now I can put the second wall in place. Just hold all the joints together. Put a little bit more in there. Just hold the joints nice and tight. And another building is glued together. So what I'm going to do is just let the glue evaporate from there and kind of dry up, and then I'll go and spray some black primer on it. In the meantime, I will paint the doors and windows for this. So once the black primer had dried, I sprayed the small cabin with some green Tamiya paint. Decided to go with a different color than I had done on the larger one. And then once that paint had dried, I installed the door and the two windows. Once the windows and the door were in, I did a little bit of weathering by just using some dark acrylic paints, just add little black smudges around the door handle and at the bottom of the door and things like that. Followed that with some Floquil grime. It's a light colored weathering paint. Just gave it a wash of that on the walls to kind of dirty them up a little bit. And then the final weathering was some artist acrylic paint, some gray and black mixed together and diluted with some isopropyl alcohol. I also painted the roof with some acrylic paints, a mixture of gray and black and brown, just to try to make it look like kind of weathered, dirty shingles, and just kind of brush those on. Once it was dry, I put a little person inside looking out one of the windows just to give it some interior. And I also attached a small LED. It had a resistor attached to it, a little flickering orange yellow LED to the roof, and then ran the wires out through the bottom. Once I had the roof glued on, I also glued on a chimney. The chimney I made out of some styrene tubing, just kind of cut it at a 45-degree angle, glued it together at an angle, and then painted it silver. And then once it was glued to the building, I weathered it with some acrylic paints again to kind of dirty it up. After that, it was time to install the building on the layout, or put the building in where I wanted it. So I figured out a location, drilled a hole through for the wire, and just placed the building in place. So that brings me to where it is right now. I've got the building tucked in here, kind of hidden behind these trees. I've got a couple of cameras going here so you can see it from different angles. And I think I'm going to leave it right there. The next thing I'm going to need to do is do the ground cover here, because right now this is just the brown painted plaster with a little bit of ground foam on it. And these trees will probably need to get pulled out again, because underneath this is actually just styrofoam here. There's actually plywood underneath it, but it's just foam here with some plaster on top. So I'm going to pull these trees out again. It'll be an upcoming video. I'm not going to be doing that right now, but the idea is that I'm going to pull these trees out, and then I'm going to do some more ground cover around this. And basically this area from the river back to that cliff underneath the trestle, I'm going to try to finish up the ground cover in this area right here. And so what I was looking for was a small cabin that can work like a little trapper's cabin, because I actually remember as a kid going up north along the ACR with my dad, and we were going ice fishing in the winter, and one of the trips we ended up actually staying in a small trapper's cabin. So a lot of the things that I'm doing on here are just things that are just kind of reminding me of things that I did as a kid and as a teenager with my dad. So wanted to build a little cabin for that. I like that because it's a nice small one. Those trapper cabins were never any larger than they need to be because they were out there trapping, not building buildings. And this is the other cabin that I built in it. It turned out okay. I've got the little chimneys on here. I've got it all weathered, and I've gained the same thing. I've painted the roof with some acrylic paints. And I've got a little white and a yellow flickering LED in here to make it look like, maybe somebody has a fire going in a stove or whatever. And most likely I'm going to end up putting it right here along the front of the layout here once I do some terrain. Right now it's just plaster, so I just set it there for now. But there's my little trapper's cabin. Again, not a big project. It's a very simple little build, but with paint, some weathering, you can make it look like a kind of a cool little building. So anyway, not a complicated project, just a little cabin. I ended up building 2 instead of 1 because the first one was bigger than I wanted it to be. But that's okay. I will use it in a different spot on my layout. And, later on I'll get around to doing the actual scenery around that, hopefully soon, but didn't want to make this video too long. Like always, thanks for watching. See you next time.